Shocking truth, why Paul called himself a slave, you won't believe the reason. In a sleepy little town where whispers traveled faster than the wind, a young man named Paul stood at the center of a storm waiting to explode. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the rusted old fence surrounding his family's property. This wasn't just any ordinary day today. Paul had decided to reveal a truth that sent tremors through the heart of the town. He called himself a slave, and the gasps of shock that rippled through the crowd felt like icy daggers piercing the still air. Why would he say that? What dark secret lay behind those simple yet heavy words? Just as the townsfolk clutched their chests or exchanged puzzled glances, a shiver raced down Paul's spine. He could feel their eyes drilling into him, curiosity mixed with fear, like they were witnessing a tragic play they couldn't help but watch. He took a deep breath, the lump in his throat growing tighter, and with trembling hands, he prepared to uncover the layers of mystery swirling around his life. As he stepped forward, shadows danced behind him, hinting at the unseen forces that lurked in the corners of his story. Paul's life had always been different. He was raised by a mother who lived by the rules, yet spoke of freedom like it was a cruel mistress that teased and taunted. She told tales of a world where kids weren't bound by responsibility, but he discovered a reality that was much darker. Heavy burdens had been placed upon him so early. Looking over his shoulder, he remembered those suffocating nights, locked in a room filled with old family heirlooms, the weight of their history pressing down on him like a lead blanket. But what did he mean by slave? It wasn't just about chains. Paul regarded his choices, his spirit, and his aspirations, all held captive by an unrelenting sense of duty and fear. Then, suddenly, like a spark in the darkness, a memory flashed before his eyes. He recalled that dusty attic where he had stumbled upon an ancient diary, its pages yellowed and fragile. Inside, a family member had written about servitude in ways that made him question everything. Was he simply destined to follow in those footsteps? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The wind picked up as murmurs swept through the crowd, voices rising in anxious confusion. A child cried out, pulling everyone's attention back to Paul, who stood frozen, every muscle tense with anticipation. This was his moment. He could feel the weight of those curious gazes pressing upon him like chains, and yet, a flicker of defiance ignited within him. Could he set himself free from what held him captive? Would revealing his truth break the chains that bound him, or would it lead him deeper into darkness? The air thickened with tension, and every heartbeat felt electrifying. As he took a step forward, ready to unveil the shocking reason behind his bold declaration, the ground shook beneath him. A loud crash echoed from the forest behind the house, snapping his focus away. Leaves rustled violently as something, or someone, broke through the underbrush. Gasps filled the crowd once again, eyes wide with panic. What was coming? Was it friend or foe? The line between truth and tragedy blurred as Paul stood there, heart racing, caught between the past he'd known and the present about to unfold. What awaited him out there, lurking just beyond the safety of the crowd? The whispering wind carried an unsettling tension, and every heart in the crowd raced in sync with Paul's pounding pulse. He turned his head slightly, eyes narrowing, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever was breaking through the underbrush. A murmur rippled through the spectators, like a wave crashing against the shore, as fear etched itself in their expressions. Suddenly, a figure burst into view. A wild-eyed man, disheveled and breathless, staggered into the clearing, branches snapping underfoot as he emerged from the shadows. Fear gripped Paul's heart. This stranger bore an urgency that felt palpable, as real as the storm brewing in the air. Help! The man gasped, desperation in his voice, sending a sharp chill down Paul's spine. You've got to listen. They're coming. Who is coming? A woman shouted from the back, her voice trembling. The man's gaze flitted around the crowd, landing on Paul with an intensity that felt like a jolt of electricity. The ones who own you, the ones who own me. They're not finished with us yet. A collective gasp echoed as townsfolk exchanged worried glances. Ownership? What was he talking about? Paul felt a familiar weight settle in his stomach. Was this tied to his own declaration? Without waiting for confirmation, the man staggered closer to Paul. You have to understand, he whispered urgently, there are secrets buried deep in this town, secrets that bind us all. Paul's mind raced. Could the man know about the diary? The history that haunted him? Or was he just a delusional wanderer, unaware of what he was saying? The crowd began to encircle them, drawn in by the unfolding scene. Listen to him. Someone shouted as if voicing the silent thought that hung heavy in the air. Paul, he is trying to warn us. The stranger took a deep breath, urgency drowning out his fear. I found the old ledger in the abandoned house on the hill. It was all there. The truth about the deals made generations ago, the sacrifice. Paul echoed, the word striking him like a cold slap. He felt those ghostly chains holding him back, anchoring him to a past he couldn't fully comprehend. What sacrifices had been made in the name of family legacy? Yes. The man continued, sweat glistening on his brow. They traded lives for power to keep their grip on our futures. You're not the only one who feels it. We are all bound, but we don't have to be. The crowd inhaled sharply, a collective shudder reverberating through the group. This was no mere rant. The atmosphere crackled with a new kind of tension, fear morphing into a scintilla of hope. Break the chains. Someone yelled, enthusiasm flooding through their voice, rallying the crowd. But as the murmur of agreement rose, doubt battled within Paul's chest. Was it truly possible? Could he, standing at the precipice of this truth, be the one to either ignite a rebellion or plunge into chaos? Before he could answer, the ground beneath them rumbled once again, more severe this time, as if the earth itself were echoing the danger just beyond the tree line. The air thickened, and in that moment, Paul realized the stakes had never been higher. What do we do? He asked, looking at the man, desperation in his eyes. But before he could get an answer, a dark shadow loomed from the forest, a figure, shrouded in a cloak, stepping into the fading light. The whispers of the crowd fell silent, replaced by the sound of breath being held. Paul, the figure spoke, voice smooth yet sharp like glass. You've stirred something you cannot control, and now, you must face the consequences. An icy wave washed over him as he stood frozen, caught in the chilling grip of fate's snare. What did that figure want? What sacrifices awaited him? And would the truth finally set him free, or drag him further into darkness? Questions raced through his mind as the figure advanced into the clearing, the crowd parting like leaves in the wind. This was only the beginning of a journey that would change everything. The cloak billowed like a storm cloud as the figure stepped into the flickering light, piercing eyes hidden beneath the hood. Paul felt a tightness in his chest as he struggled to grasp the reality unfolding before him. This was not just a warning, it was a message, a confrontation that could shake the very core of everything he knew. The crowd shifted uneasily, murmurs slipping into anxious silence. Who are you? Paul managed to choke out, trying to project confidence. But the tremble in his voice betrayed him. What do you want? The figure paused, seeming to relish in the tension. Ah, the one they call Paul. You've taken your first steps toward understanding. But do you truly want to know what lies on the path ahead? What do you mean? Paul's heart raced, a mixture of fear and defiance flooding his veins. I'm standing here, aren't I? Just tell me what you want. We want to be free. The figure stepped closer, their voice dropping to a whisper that echoed eerily in the stillness. You think your choices are your own. But they are not, Paul. Not yet. Not until you unravel the truth woven into the very fabric of this town. A chill swept through the crowd, igniting curiosity and dread alike. Paul focused on the figure, shaking off the fear that threatened to consume him. What truth? He could sense it. Everything felt wrong, twisted. There was something about the man's eyes, a mix of sorrow and urgency. The ledger, the sacrifices, the wild-eyed man interjected, taking a step closer. It connects us. It binds us. What you choose to do with that knowledge is up to you. Enough. The figure's voice turned sharp. You know nothing of the stakes at play here. Paul's mind spiraled. The ledger, the sacrifices, the ownership. It all coalesced into a haunting reality he had buried deep within him. Somewhere, he sensed that the past whispered through his veins, waiting to be uncovered. What do you mean I'm not free? He asked, desperation tinged with understanding. Is it the town? Its history? The figure inclined their head, the motion emphasized by the shadows that danced below the cloak. Here, your ancestors made a pact, a sacrifice that continues to bind you. Its repercussions ripple through your life, fueling your doubts, your fears. But listen closely, Paul. You can break this curse, expose the darkness that lurks beneath the surface. But the truth has a price, and so does your victory. An uneasy silence fell, thick with the weight of that ultimatum. The crowd's breaths quickened, but Paul felt an odd sense of clarity within the chaos. Could he truly unravel the ties that bound him? He glanced at the wild-eyed man, hope sparking in his chest, a kindred spirit in this fight. What do I have to do? Paul asked, his voice steady now, louder than ever. Tell me. But before any reply could come, a low growl echoed from beyond the tree line, cutting through the fragile tension. Eyes widened, hearts raced, and fear clawed at their throats. The shadowy figure shifted, the hood slipping just slightly to the side, revealing a flash of a scarred cheek, an all too familiar face from his past. Beware the creatures of the night, they warned, drawing back into the shadows. They come for those who dare to seek the truth. Just as the statement hung heavy in the air, a deafening crash erupted behind the crowd, causing them to jump back in unison. A monstrous silhouette emerged, pushing through the foliage, eyes gleaming with an unnatural hunger. What now? Someone gasped, panic setting in as the crowd spun toward the source of the sound. Paul's heart raced. This was more than a revelation, this was a call to action. He had to decide: stay and fight or run and hide. The moments stretched on, thick with dread, as the monstrous figure loomed closer, seemingly intent on claiming those caught in the night's grip. What lay ahead for Paul? Could he stand firm in the face of impending darkness, or would the choice be made for him? The shadows whispered secrets, and Paul had no time to hesitate. It was time to unravel the truth and confront the darkness that had been waiting for him all along. The creature burst through the underbrush, massive and hulking, its breath ragged and loud. It was covered in matted fur, eyes glowing like burning coals. Fear thickened the air, wrapping around Paul like a vice. He saw the terror in the crowd's eyes, their bodies frozen in place, torn between fight or flight, and he knew he had to act. Back! He shouted, raising his arms as if that would somehow shield them from the beast's hunger. Get away from here! But his voice seemed to vanish into the night, swallowed by the chaos that spread like wildfire. Someone screams. A woman stumbled back, her face a mask of horror, as the creature lunged forward, drool dripping from its jagged teeth. Everyone, to the cabin! Called a voice from the mass, a man he vaguely recognized, setting a course into the woods. Paul hesitated, processing the figure's desperate command against the wailing sounds of panic. No! He cried out, feeling a pull deep inside him. We need to face this thing together. Don't just run. But the mere suggestion fell flat. The crowd began to scatter, darting toward the safety of the cabin before it was too late. Paul glanced at the wild-eyed man, who nodded, a grim realization lining his features. There was no turning back now. With a sudden determination, Paul nodded back. We have to get to the ledger. He yelled over the din. There's a truth there that can help us. The wild-eyed man's eyes widened, fury battling with fear. That ledger is as cursed as the darkness itself. But maybe it's our only chance. A shudder shook Paul's core. The thought of delving into that dark history was terrifying, yet he could feel its call. The ledger was a talisman, holding secrets that could either doom them or set them free. "Follow me," Paul ordered, darting deeper into the shadows, the wild-eyed man close behind. The sounds of the creature pursuing the fleeing crowd reverberated in his ears. He could still hear the growls and the panic-stricken screams. It fueled him, igniting his sense of urgency. The path twisted and turned, branches snagged against his clothes, but he pressed on, fueled by desperation. The cabin loomed ahead, its walls trembling under the weight of dread. Paul could almost hear it whisper secrets waiting for him to uncover. They reached the creaking door, pushed it open, and plunged into the musty darkness within. The room was filled with shadows, and a flickering lantern illuminated the faint outline of a desk. Dust motes danced like trapped spirits in the air. Paul rushed toward it, rifling through the piles of papers, searching for what might hold the key to their salvation. "It's here somewhere," he muttered, panic coursing through him. His hands shook as he flipped through pages, desperate for a glimpse of truth. Suddenly, the room trembled with a deafening roar. The monstrous figure had breached the sanctuary, and they could hear the thundering of its massive footsteps drawing near. "Paul!" The wild-eyed man shouted, panic rising in his voice. "We can't stay here. It'll find us. No. We can't give up." Paul's heart raced, fire igniting behind his stern resolve. "I can't let this town's past repeat itself. I have to know." The loud crash of claws against wood echoed through the cabin as the creature entered, its grotesque silhouette casting an ominous shadow over them. "Look!" The wild-eyed man pointed, eyes wide with disbelief. "The ledger." Paul turned. The old, leather-bound ledger lay just out of reach, half hidden beneath a tangle of loose papers. He sprinted toward it, the weight of what he might discover hanging in the air. As his fingers grasped the worn cover, the breath of the beast slid across his neck. "Now, Paul. Now." His companion shouted, urging him faster. With a deep breath, Paul opened the ledger. The town's history, filled with haunting names and unthinkable sacrifices, greeted him. Would the revelations within prove to be the key to saving their lives, or would it seal their fates forever? Just as a shadow loomed over him, he whispered, "I will break this curse." But as he turned the pages, a realization struck, chilling him to the bone. The names were familiar, every single one of them connected in unexpected ways. The creature's growl rumbled through the room, vibrating in his chest like a death knell, and the question weighed heavily: what if the grips of the curse had not just bound the town, but Paul himself? The air thickened with uncertainty, and just when he thought he understood the truth, a sickening twist shattered everything. What had he unwittingly unleashed? The air crackled with tension as Paul's heart pounded against his ribs. Every name he read felt like a noose tightening around his throat, squeezing the breath from his lungs. The creature's growls echoed in the shadows, a grim symphony that threatened to drown him. He needed clarity, but the ledger blurred before his eyes, the ink twisting into ominous shapes under the flickering light. "Paul!" The wild-eyed man was there, his voice trembling, urgency pushing through fear. "What are those names? Do you see anyone you know?" Just then, the monstrous figure barreled through the doorway, wood splintering as it moved. Paul froze, his fingers still gripping the ledger. He squinted into the creature's bloodshot eyes, recognizing the depth of its primal fury. The suffocating dread gripped him, mingling with an overwhelming need to understand the power within these cursed pages. Every name here, Paul's voice felt distant, like a ghost in a fog. They're all connected to sacrifices made generations ago. Through the chaos, he recalled whispered conversations in town, old legends that spoke of dark deals and heavy prices. This ledger, it's more than history. It's a ledger of debts. The wild-eyed man took a step back, glancing nervously at the now open doorway where monstrous claws scraped against the frame. Debts? What do you mean? That can't be, but Paul's mind raced ahead. If these sacrifices were made, that means we might be living under a curse, bound from the past. A tremor of realization rippled through him. What if I'm tied to this? What if a bone-chilling roar cut him off, making the air vibrate? The creature lunged forward, and instinct took over. With adrenaline surging through him, Paul yanked the ledger close, and, in a desperate bid, flipped to the pages that stopped him cold. There, scrawled in frantic ink, were names writ large across the ages. His own name glared back at him, a shocking, glaring reminder of his fate. What the hell? He gasped, staggering back as the cold truth washed over him. Paul's family had made a desperate choice to save their own, and now it looked like the price was his to pay. Paul! The wild-eyed man shouted. We need to go, it's too late. No. Paul was frantic. I need to figure out how to break this cycle. The beast's ferocious form lunged into the room, and clawed arms reached towards him. Paul instinctively raised the ledger, and in that moment, a pulse of energy surged from its pages. The text glowed a sickly green, radiating waves of terrifying power that knocked Paul off his feet. He landed hard, the impact jolting him. As he tried to regain his bearings, he saw shadows swirling around him, seemingly emerging from the pages he had just devoured. Figures took form, faces frozen in anguish. With every heartbeat, the names stirred, whispering secrets long buried. Was this the curse bound within the ledger? Were these souls the remnants of past sacrifices, calling out for reparation? Gasping, Paul struggled to piece it all together, feeling the raw essence of their agony seep into him. Help us! A voice echoed, a chilling mix of despair and fury, grabbing Paul's attention. It was a woman's voice, haunting and familiar. He looked closer. She resembled someone he had known. The firelight flickered, casting eerie shadows. Break us free! The spectre cried out, her eyes piercing into his soul. Paul's throat went dry. How? How do I break this curse? But even as those words left his lips, the shadows grew thicker, wrapping tighter, suffocating him in an embrace of dread. Suddenly, the creature lunged toward him, and darkness crashed into him like a tidal wave, pulling Paul deeper into the tangle of histories. In this chaos, he realized the weight of choice clinging to every breath: heroes or slaves, saviors or sacrifices. And in that dreadful moment, he knew something even more harrowing was at play. Losing the ledger could unleash horrors into the world, but holding on to it might seal his fate. What would he choose? As shadows drew closer, the past clawing at him like the beast itself. With a drum of urgency echoing in his heart, he knew he had to decide. There, in the depths of despair, a new truth clawed at him. What if surrendering could be the ultimate act of rebellion? As the beast's growl thundered, a realization sparked within him, igniting a question that promised confrontation. What if, to save himself, he must first sacrifice everything he believed in? The darkness surrounded Paul, pulling him into a realm of pulsating shadows. The beast's growl reverberated in his ears, a ghastly reminder of the peril that loomed. He struggled, lungs burning, heart racing, the ledger still gripped tightly in his hands. Faces flickered in and out of focus around him, each one echoing a story, a plea, an urge to escape this horrific fate. Help us! The woman's voice sliced through the chaos, steady and deep, cutting against the fear that threatened to paralyze him. She bore the weight of generations in her expression, faces twisted in sorrow. Break us free! The voices crescendoed, an agonizing chorus that gripped at Paul's heart, fueling his desperation. He fought against the encroaching shadows that sought to engulf him, urging himself to hold on to the truth he had unearthed. That he gritted his teeth, focusing on the spectral forms swirling about him. What do you want from me? He shouted, his voice a defiant tremor. The figures leaned closer, their whispers melding into one. The ledger, it holds the key, the past is chained to you. Each word dripped with urgency, filling him with a sense of purpose amidst the terror. Just then, the beast pounded its massive fists against the floor, shaking the room. Paul narrowed his gaze, pushing his fear aside. If my family did this, then it's my responsibility to fix it. The thought ignited a spark inside him, boiling his blood with newfound resolve. Identify the root of the curse, the familiar voice urged again, the shadows twisting as though alive. Each name is a binding, a promise made a life intertwined. Every fiber of his being buzzed with energy, but the weight of dread still loomed. He forced his eyes to the ledger, flipping through the scrawled names that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Bound, broken, or free, what does it take? A question washed over him, both terrifying and exhilarating. Paul! The wild-eyed man screamed, peering through the shadows. We need to run. It's coming. No. Paul's voice came out louder than he intended. I have to break this cycle. He focused his mind, reaching deep into the pages of history that stretched before him, the ink swirling like a living entity. He recalled the woman's visage. She wasn't just a stranger, but a part of the tapestry woven throughout his family's legacy. What if my choice now, in this moment, can change everything? What if the shadows buzzed, intensifying, melding into the shape of a massive brick wall looming ominously in front of him, a barrier between the past and the present? Identify the debt. The voices screamed, furious and desperate. The beast howled, a sound full of rage and hunger, the air thickening with a familiar damp scent fear. Debts, sacrifices. His mind raced back to the town's whispers about the old ones who vanished, deals made to save themselves. I have to find out what my family did. He flipped through the ledger, a surge of energy pulsing from the text, a desperation that pushed against his skin. There it was, a name hidden in the folds of ink: his grandmother. The words danced and blurred much like the shadows around him. What was the price? What was the price? He repeated, louder this time, with each word echoing a challenge into the void. The room trembled as the ledger glowed brighter with each question, the air shifting, stifling him as the names twisted into singular focus. Then he saw it, a date, beneath his grandmother's name. It screamed out to him, a chain link forged in the fires of desperation. The sickening truth crashed over him, filling him with icy dread. It isn't just my name that ties me to this. It's everything. The beast stopped, as if struck by the revelation, gauging Paul's every movement. Time twisted around him, he felt an immense pressure building, the choice weighing heavily. Then I have to rewrite the ending. He shouted, rebelling against the pull of hopelessness. But suddenly, the creature lunged forward, jaws wide to swallow him whole, and with it came a cacophony of whispers, drowning out his resolve. What would he write on the next page of his destiny? With the ledger pulsating in his grip and the beast poised to strike, Paul sensed the next chapter of his fate about to unfold. Could he harness the energy and the pain of those who had come before him, or would he become another name on the ledger, forever chained to the past? The choice rested heavily on his shoulders, but even so, should he dare to defy his own legacy? Paul's heart pounded in his chest as the beast lunged. Time stretched, each moment elongated like an elastic band ready to snap. He could feel the heat of its breath on his skin, an oppressive reminder of the stakes at hand. The ledger vibrated in his hands, an anchor amid the chaos. Rewrite the ending. The command hung in the air, but with the creature's weight bearing down on him, could he truly utter a new narrative? In a desperate burst of energy, he slammed the ledger against the floor. You think you can control me? The beast hesitated, its massive jaws snapping inches from his face. Then, as if responding to his defiance, the shadows around them coiled tighter, a cyclone of despair ready to bury him alive. Identify the debt. The voices hissed once more, rising to a fever pitch. Each shout drilled into his mind, a relentless reminder of the past's unforgiving grip. Images of anguished faces flickered before him, a parade of those lost to the abyss, each one paying their toll. He glanced back at the ledger, feeling the urgency surge through him. There has to be something more. He shouted, flipping through the pages with frantic speed. Beneath the name of his grandmother, a list began to appear, connections to others in shades of gray. Each name tied him to a lineage woven in secrets and blood. Paul. A voice broke through a whisper of his own. They don't want you to know. His breath hitched. This was more than just a ledger, it was a powerful spell woven in ink, a binding contract detailing sacrifices made throughout generations. The creature moved again, a shudder radiating from the ground, and Paul felt heat gnawing at the edges of his sanity. What do you want from me? He roared, almost pleading. Why prioritize suffering? Then, he remembered the stories from town echoes of betrayal, cruel deals. Maybe it wasn't he just his family, maybe it was everyone tied to this cursed ledger. What if this cycle only ends with truth? He murmured, insight dawning as he realized, this wasn't just about reckoning his family's debt. It was exposure, the labor and fortune at the price of souls. Paul was not merely a member of the family, he was bound by choice, and each name written was a prisoner craving release. Nobody is free until they speak the truth. Paul shouted into the void, a cry reverberating off the walls. The ledger glowed brightly, each name shimmering as the shadows writhed in response to his sudden revelation. Suddenly, the beast lunged again, this time more ferociously. Paul's instincts kicked in. He threw himself aside, arms bracing against the floor. The beast snarled, its weight crashing beside him, a dull thud that shook the very foundation of the space. Through the chaos, Paul's eyes caught a flicker of light seeping from the ledger, a glistening silver word forming on the page. It pulsed, beckoning to him. Could it be a way to rewrite his legacy? Heart racing, he flipped the page. Break free! He shouted, his voice strong amidst the creature's howls. Break the chains! The shadows hissed in protest, but the beast hesitated, shifting uneasily as if the calling of the ledger shook it to its core. In that moment, Paul looked into the creature's bloodshot eyes, a flicker of recognition passing between them. You are as trapped as I am, he whispered, understanding dawning. The ledger pulsed again, its energy swirling around like a whirlpool. The pages flew. Names shifted, configurations rearranging in a frenzy of light and darkness. Paul steeled his resolve. If I must confront this truth, if I must even face my own cursed inheritance, then so be it. But as he prepared to seize control, a terrible roar erupted, shaking him to his core. A stinging pain erupted in his side as the beast tore through the shadows, lunging for him again. Would he be able to rewrite his fate, or would he join the souls bound to the ledger forever? The world spun, and Paul felt the icy grip of inevitability closing in around him. Could he face the truth and emerge unscathed, or would the ledger's curse snatch away his chance to shatter the cycle? The battle for his destiny was only just beginning, a ticking clock echoing the urgency of freedom, and Paul, gripped in the throes of darkness, was left questioning whether he had the strength to rewrite his own narrative. The world twisted around Paul as he fought against the heavy fog of his dread. Adrenaline coursed through his veins, igniting every nerve ending and propelling him into action. I refuse to be your captive, he yelled, the sound of his own voice barely cutting through the roars and growls echoing in the chamber. The beast's breath was hot, rancid, filling his lungs with a suffocating suffusion of fear. Its claws scraped against the earth, splinters of stone flying into the air like shards of a glass wall ready to break. Paul could feel the ledger pulsing against his palm, almost alive, resonating with the desperation building within him. He took a quick glance at the names swirling on the page. His heart sank as he understood the magnitude of what he was confronting. Each individual was a fraction of a debt, a scar and a legacy that had chained them all. The betrayal of his ancestors hung thick in the air, a stench of shame that blinded him. How many lives had been sacrificed for wealth or power? How much heartbreak lingered in the shadows? Enough! He bellowed into the dimness. It ends now. A wave of strength surged through him as he began to read the names aloud, his voice rising above the creature's growls. Anna, Jacob, Linda, you won't take another soul. Not while I stand here. With every name spoken, the ledger glowed brighter, flames licking the edges of its pages. The shadows recoiled, pulling back almost in fear, and the creature's malevolence turned uncertain. But the beast wasn't done yet. With a terrifying roar, it lunged forward, snapping at Paul, who barely dodged the ferocity. He stumbled back, still clutching the ledger. Its weight felt heavy, heavy with the memories trapped within. With each breath, Paul could hear their whispers urging him on, kindling something in his heart. Find the truth, they seemed to beckon, their voices melding into a chorus of hope and despair. In that moment, he felt the echoes of their pain but also their yearning for liberation, a force stronger than any beast. Break the mirror. Paul shouted, a thought striking him like lightning. Reflect the truth. The ledger pulsed intensely, responding to his call. He focused hard, willing the words swirling around him to transform. I rewrite my fate. I rewrite yours. As if responding to his plea, a furious wind erupted within the room, swirling the shadows away and revealing a doorway beyond the monster. Paul could see flickering light, a sanctuary already filled with whispers of hope. But the beast was relentless. It charged again, a shadow moving too fast. Paul barely had time to react. He could feel the beast's hot breath brushing against his neck and, for a moment, the weight of dread threatened to swallow him whole. Paul's breath came in quick gasps. What happens if I lose? He thought, dread twisting in his gut. But the ledger surged one last time, bursting with a radiant glow, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. Show me your face. He demanded. In that instant, the creature hesitated, confusion crackling in the air. Paul could sense the power shifting, the beast battling against its own instincts. As he stood at the edge of despair and salvation, he realized he held the key not just to his fate, but to the fate of every name inscribed in that ledger. The shadowy chains of the past trembled, uncertain in his newfound strength. But suddenly, with a deafening howl, the beast lunged again. This time, the shadows flared back to life, swirling violently like a storm. The intensity weighed down on him. Could he harness the truth in time? Could he confront this beast and emerge reborn? The ledger's light sparked brightly as Paul prepared to meet the monster's fury head-on, but he didn't know if he had enough power to shield himself from the impending storm. The door behind him beckoned, but would he dare take a step through it? Would the truth lay waiting, or would it unleash the darkness within him? The answer loomed just out of reach, a chilling whisper promising revelations that could alter everything Paul believed. The air thickened, pressing against Paul as the creature lunged one more time, its claws slashing through the space he had occupied just moments before. He stumbled back, his heart racing, the ledger burning in his hand. The whispers grew louder, echoing against the stone walls, urging him to act decisively. This isn't just a fight for survival, it's a fight for the truth. He thought, summoning courage from the shadows of doubt. With each name he had read, he envisioned the faces behind them, those whose lives had spiraled into the abyss because of this beast. I am their voice, he muttered fiercely, shaking off the fear that threatened to bind him. He felt their spirits stirring within, a sea of anguish and hope. If I fail, their stories will be lost forever. Moments flashed through his mind, the laughter of children, the warmth of forgotten hopes. Each name he yelled out was a spark igniting the ledger's core, sending waves of energy radiating through him. Elena. Marcus. Sophie. He shouted, feeling the words surge like wildfire within him. The beast hesitated once more, its form flickering like a candle in the wind as Paul unleashed a torrent of names, each root of his ancestors' legacy calling forth strength. The cracks in the beast's facade grew, revealing glimpses of a more sinister entrapment. It was anger, pain, betrayal, the very fabric of what made it. The ledger pulsed against his palm, a rhythm matching his heartbeat. The past is not a prison. He roared, raising it high. The flames along its edges intensified, wrapping around him in a cocoon of blistering light. You were forged in the fires of betrayal, but I will shatter your chains. Suddenly, from the shadows, a figure emerged. An elder woman, her face wrought with sorrow. You must confront the beast within, she said, her voice echoing in the tumult. For what is it, but a reflection of your own demons? Paul struggled to hold her gaze. In her eyes, he saw fragments of his own fears, the doubt, the guilt, the self-loathing shrouding his heart. No. He whispered, a realization trailing through him like a chilling wind. You're not just a monster. You're my past. The weight of his ancestry crashed onto him. The loss, the pain, and the shackles he had carried were not just from others, they were from him too. He had allowed it to define him. With a deep breath, Paul set the ledger against the ground. I will no longer be a slave to this. He declared, the ember of resolve igniting into a blaze. This is not just about breaking your hold, this is about freeing myself. The beast roared in fury as the light enveloped the chamber, swallowing the darkness whole. In that moment, the creature's monstrous form began to dissolve, transforming before his eyes. It flickered like a mirage, revealing translucent layers of pain, and beneath those layers, he saw it, a small child, eyes wide with loneliness, shackled by the very same fears that haunted him. A gasp escaped Paul's lips. You too? He murmured. Was the monster not the villain he had painted it to be, but rather a helpless victim of the cycle he desperately sought to escape? The ground rumbled beneath him as tremors ran through the chamber. The flickering light from the ledger surged forward, crashing into the beast and illuminating the darkness around them. Paul felt a surge of urgency. Was this the moment he could indeed set them all free? Or would he fall back into despair, chained once more by the sins of his past? As the beast faltered, Paul prepared himself, standing at the brink of a revelation that could shatter the very core of his existence. He would face both the monster and the child within himself. This is the moment. He vowed, the air around him crackling with potential, but just then, a shadow flickered at the edge of his vision, a distortion in the light, an ominous whisper. You think you can change fate? Paul spun around, heart pounding, recognizing the voice. Who was lurking in the darkness, ready to undermine his newfound strength? The answer darted out of reach like smoke in the wind, thickening the tension in the air and sending chills down his spine. As the darkness whispered promises of despair and doubt, Paul braced himself. Could he uncover the truth that lay even deeper? Could he stand tall against not just the beast, but the very parts of himself that had held him captive? Gripping the ledger tighter, he took a step forward, ready to embrace whatever revelation lay hidden in the shadows. But was he prepared for the answers, or would they plunge him deeper into chaos? The light from the ledger pulsed like a heartbeat, casting an eerie glow in the dimness of the cabin. Paul clenched his jaw, eyes wide, heart hammering in his chest. The child hidden within the beast flickered before him, a pleading gaze wrapped in layers of anguish. Help me, the child whispered, voice trembling in the charged air. Their connection struck Paul with immense clarity. This was a part of him, a piece of his own shattered past. I see you. Paul shouted, the words bursting forth like a storm breaking. You're trapped, just like me. The revelation clawed at his heart. The monster wasn't just a creature of terror, it bore the scars of his legacy, his family's decisions weighing heavily upon it. The shadows surrounding them seemed to wail how many lives had turned inwards, how many had suffered beneath the weight of silence. Together, we can end this. Paul declared, the essence of the ledger channeling through him, merging the cries from the past and transforming sorrow into power. I won't abandon you. The creature, this part of himself, hesitated, its fear translating into desperation. With determination surging through his veins, Paul stepped closer, ready to confront everything that had rendered him a slave: shame, fear, inherited bitterness. This is about breaking the cycle. I want to let you continue to hide in darkness. The ledger in his grip glimmered with the hopes of the countless souls intertwined in its pages. As he looked deep into the animal's tormented expression, something ignited within him, a fierce resolve to guide this lost fragment of himself toward freedom. All of this pain, he shouted, voice steady now. Let us confront it together. With each whispered name he recited, the ledger illuminated, threads of energy pulsing between them. Names morphed into flickering figures, their faces appearing, full of emotion. We were never bound to this curse. Paul yelled, and for the first time, he felt an ember of hope igniting the despair. We're bound to each other. The atmosphere quaked as he envisioned ripping apart the chains binding them. You don't have to carry this burden alone, he said fiercely, reaching out to touch the creature's face. In that instant, the beast stilled, a flicker of understanding crossing its features, a glimpse of acceptance. Its monstrous visage softened as Paul whispered, "You're not a monster. You are freedom waiting to happen." The air thickened, electric with possibilities, as he felt the ledger's power surge, amplifying his intention. Today, we break the chains. We redefine our legacy. Like an echo of thunder shaking the heavens, a shockwave radiated through the cabin, igniting a brilliant light that enveloped them. The names in the ledger indeed became a part of him, surrounding the bond they had forged through suffering and shared history. Paul steeled himself, feeling each soul's essence, their hopes, their regrets merging with his core. "I choose healing," he proclaimed, the words resonating in the stillness, carving out a new reality. The creature emitted a low whimper, trembling as the shadows began to tear away. Paul felt liberation swell, know he had plunged into a depth of courage, breaking barriers forged by generations. We are not victims. We rewrite our fate. In a flash, the energy erupted, and Paul could feel the dark binds unraveling. The child's form began to vanish, dissipating into shimmering orbs of light, each name from the ledger floating up, each whisper reforming the past, a haunting yet colorful tapestry of possibility. The child's eyes met Paul's one last time, a gilded promise of freedom before dissolving into the ether. "Thank you," it echoed softly, with one last roar. The beast's monstrous form glowed brilliantly and shattered like glass, splintering into thousands of radiant pieces that illuminated the cabin. Paul felt exhilarated, the ground beneath him rumbling with the newfound energy sweeping through the room, a tidal wave of freedom washing away the darkness. Paul stumbled back, breathless, witnessing how the ledger transformed as the names aligned, carving new paths into existence, illuminating the faces of those who had fought through the ages. "We have won," he gasped, filling his lungs with the fresh air of possibility. The air buzzed with a sense of renewal. As the light faded, the cabin transformed, no longer a holy prison, but a sanctuary filled with echoes of laughter. In its heart lay a promise: together, they would reclaim their narrative from despair, striping the toxic threads that tied them down. With newfound purpose, Paul stepped outside, sunlight warming his face. The town looked different now, imbued with a sense of hope that had always been dulled beneath fear. The faces around him, once clouded with worry, shimmered with clarity. "We can rewrite our stories," he murmured, a smile breaking across his face, and so he stepped into his new beginning, arms wide open, ready to embrace the untold chapters of his life, bound only by the love and truth he had forged. This was his farewell, not just to the past, but a grand welcome to the future, a place he would no longer fear, but instead embrace with a fiercely open heart. "We can be free," he declared, and the echoes reverberated through the town, a chorus resonating with the voices of those who yearned for liberation. He turned, heart warm with gratitude, and landed his gaze back on the horizon where sunlight streamed down, a promise of new beginnings. Now, for you, this journey is just beginning too. Do you want to keep experiencing powerful narratives like Paul's? You need to subscribe now so you won't miss a single exclusive story that's coming your way. Smash that like button now to help fuel the algorithm, and let us spread these messages of truth together. Don't wait even one more second to flood the comments with your reactions and theories about Paul's epic journey. What do you think he'll do next? And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support, and only true fans understand the importance of this.